Among the many figures who played a significant role in the 19th century search for systems of reading and writing for the blind, a prominent place belongs to the Englishman William Moon, 1818 to 1894. Moon lost his sight at the age of 21 as a result of a severe eye disease. After this event, he devoted himself to teaching blind people in Brighton, where he experimented with the various tactile writing systems available at the time. He soon realized that many of his pupils struggled to learn methods based on overly complex tactile characters. The difficulty was even greater for those who had become blind during adolescence or adulthood, since these individuals, although retaining a visual memory of printed letters, had had fewer opportunities to develop effective tactile reading skills. It therefore became necessary to adopt embossed signs that were simple, continuous, and easily recognizable by touch. The decisive occasion was his experience with a young pupil who, despite every effort, was unable to read using any existing system. Determined to find a solution, Moon devised a new embossed alphabet based on thick lines, curves, and simple angles, which could be clearly perceived by the fingers, and which partly recalled the forms of the Latin alphabet. The Moon system stood out for its great simplicity and tactile clarity. Only 14 basic signs, variously rotated or mirrored, were sufficient to represent the entire alphabet. The letters appeared large and well-defined, so much so that Moon himself claimed they could be read even with a gloved finger. This characteristic made the system particularly useful for adults, for the elderly, and for those who had lost their sight after childhood, as they could associate these forms with visual memories of the letters learned in their youth. Moreover, the system was intuitive even for sighted people. A teacher or family member could easily follow the text by reading with their eyes what the blind person was reading with their fingers. Another original feature of the method was the arrangement of the lines on the page. Moon considered it useful for them to proceed in alternating directions, so that upon reaching the end of one line, the reader would immediately find the beginning of the next without having to return the hand to the opposite edge of the sheet. To facilitate this transition, he also inserted small guiding marks that helped the reader to locate the starting point easily. From 1847 onwards, Moon began to publish his first booklets, often of a religious nature, convinced that direct access to the scriptures was fundamental to the education of the blind. Over time, his method spread well beyond British borders, thanks in part to the support of the British and Foreign Bible Society. Moon alphabets were adapted for a great many languages, including those of distant countries such as China and India, where the Latin alphabet was unfamiliar, but where Moon's simple and tangible forms could nonetheless be used. In 1858, the most monumental work of his project appeared, the entire Bible in English, printed in 60 volumes and 5,000 pages in Moon characters. Alongside alphabetic writing, Moon also developed an embossed musical system, aware of the importance that music held for the education of the blind. His musical notation did not use the traditional staff, but instead employed a series of simplified symbols derived from his alphabet, thus maintaining consistency with the logic of the method he had already devised for reading. As an example of musical text, here is a simple fragment reproducing the British national anthem. The embossed signs directly represent the values and pitch of the sounds. The notes follow the Anglo-Saxon denomination. Small arrows indicate the melodic direction upwards or downwards. Blank spaces mark the bar lines, while two parallel lines indicate the conclusion of the piece. In this way, the musician could follow the melody through a clear and immediate tactile code. Ingenious though it was, Moon's musical system never achieved the widespread adoption of musical Braille, which was already establishing itself in the same years as a universal notation. This limitation can be explained by several factors. Braille was more precise, more complete, and, above all, enabled blind people not only to read, but also to write music independently. The Moon method, both alphabetic and musical, therefore played an important but limited role. It served above all those who were unable to adapt to Braille, offering them an alternative means of reading texts and, to a lesser extent, musical scores as well. Over time, as Thomas Armitage and other supporters devoted increasing attention and support to Braille, the Moon system was gradually relegated to the background. For many years, however, it continued to be used as a simple and immediate solution, particularly suitable for those who had lost their sight as adults or in old age and had not developed a sufficiently refined sense of touch to use Braille.